Welcome to Peace is a Choice, the podcast where we explore how conscious awareness can help us cultivate inner peace and transform our lives. I'm Natasha Wallace, and in each episode, we'll hear from guests about their personal journeys, the challenges they've faced, and how they've found greater levels of peace in their lives and positively impacted the lives of others. Today, I'm joined by the incredible Lizzie Allan, a professional comedian, trained therapist, and co-founder of Hilarapy, the visionary organisation helping people use laughter as a positive, reliable, and therapeutic tool for addressing problems that can otherwise seem overwhelming. Lizzie is transforming lives through comedy, therapy, music, and even a touch of magic to create spaces of connection, healing, and peace. Lizzie, welcome to Peace is a Choice. I can't wait to get stuck in.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Well, I mean, it's an absolute pleasure. And the reason that we connected was because you're a prolific poster. So I'm an Instagram addict for my sins. So you popped up on one of my reels one day and you were talking about uplifting humanity, which, spoke to me. Since then I have watched lots of your reels and have found you to be probably one of the most honest and authentic creators that I follow. And even recently you've been talking about the fact that you're being so authentic and you've lost some followers, which I thought was quite interesting. Talk to me a little bit about you and what has led to you to being, I guess, such a conveyor of truth when it comes to social media.
I don't even know how to answer that question. My mum's an oversharer. So I think I just grew up around a lot of truth, maybe too much truth. Maybe, my mum went through quite a tumultuous childhood. And I think a lot of people did of that era because of the Second World War. Their parents were coming back traumatized, and my grandpa was very traumatized, and he became an alcoholic, drug addict, schizophrenic, and he was a practicing doctor. So as a child, my mum was always in crisis. She always seemed to be in emotional crisis, and she would just overshare. Like, we would just hear everything about what it was like for her growing up. And then she became a social worker, and she was like the wounded healer. And I think we're familiar with that. We try to fix outside of ourselves what we have struggled with internally. And the journey, I think, is to come back to self and do the work within so that we don't go outwards. But I think that's the reason why is I watched my mum go through the process of healing and trying to work through her trauma and loss as a teenager and a young adult. And that was an inspiration. So it wasn't ever shameful to say, so mentally ill in our family. My dad was an alcoholic and drug addict and gambling addict. My mum left my dad. My dad was in recovery. So he was really open about, he was always trying to make amends. So they were both quite chaotic, and I grew up in that, but there was an honesty about it. There was no, we're going to hide this from the rest of the world. We're going to pretend we're perfect. My mum was just telling anyone who would listen. So, if you transfer that into what I'm doing now, I'm basically being my mum, and I'm telling anyone who will listen, right, what's going on. But I suppose that's one of my gifts, is that I'm a communicator. And the comedy aspect is, we're British, so we know that we have been diffusing tension collectively with humor for a really long time. Yeah. And I wanted to find the intersection between comedy and healing, because I couldn't just do comedy if I was unwell. And I was unwell for a long time. I went through my own addiction journey and my own mental health journey. So
Yeah.
in a nutshell. That's why I overshare on Instagram. But it's not really oversharing. It's just, I'm just saying what's going on.
Yeah, well, it's funny you should say that, because I was listening to you on one of your reels talking about oversharing the other day, and I thought, is it oversharing? Because I think there's such an incredible power in telling the truth, and often in society we don't really feel like we can. And if you look at, the emotions that bring high vibration in comparison to the emotions that bring low vibration, I believe that authenticity is a very high vibration emotion. So the way that your being is healing because you're authentic. What does it give to you to be able to tell the truth?
I make a lot of friends. People feel comfortable around me and then they show up. So automatically I give permission. I don't give permission, but the way that I show up naturally gives permission to other people to relax a little bit and just show up wherever they're at. And that creates connection, like deep connection. And so I make friends easily and I move through the world easily because of it. And also I don't care, like people can't use my stuff against me if I've already told them. It's like, ha, I found out you were in a psych ward 25 years ago. It's like, ha, yeah, but I told you, remember?
Brilliant. What do you think it leads to, though? Because I think sometimes it feels uncomfortable, right? That's the sense I get, that sometimes you think, oh, have I said too much? Do you think that's fair?
Yeah, I think when other people are involved, for sure. Like I'm going through, I've broken up with somebody a month ago, or our paths have parted, right? And I have been talking about that a little bit, but not talking about them personally. It's more about what it's like to go through the grief of, because it's not just the loss of the person. It then becomes all the grief. It's the patterns that have been showing up in my lifetime. And then it's all the grief to do with not being able to save my mum, and then seeing these patterns that have shown up in my relationship. And then I'm sharing that. And then I'm going, oh, is that too much? Because what if it upsets them or their friends or maybe they think I'm trying to generate content, that kind of thing. So that's more of what I worry about. Is this harming somebody else? But then I get messages from people and they just really appreciate it because they're going through it themselves, and it's a universal experience and it's not personal.
Yeah.
It's not personal, right? It's all of us. We all have to go through this stuff.
So why do you think we hide so much then?
Well, I think we're just living in this ridiculous, homogenized construction, and we're being programmed. We're programmed. We're kind of part of this capitalist machine, which is very destructive. Like it has none of the divine feminine in it. So it's like off the charts masculine, not divine masculine, right? But the imbalance, right, is just ridiculous. So people hide because we've been conditioned, we've been pressed and told as children, don't talk, respect your elders, respect anyone, follow the bells, all of that stuff. So coming out of that and kind of risking rejection, risking people pointing at you and saying, you're wrong and bad and you don't belong here. That's kind of why people hide, I think. I think if you're willing to let go of what no longer serves you, which is a painful process, you're going to be able to receive what you actually can vision for yourself and what you actually feel internally. Maybe.
Well, and do you think
big questions, right? Big questions.
Well, this is why you're here. You're the person that talks about the big questions. And you think that being open and honest and being authentic is part of that process of healing and sort of releasing?
Yes, because
Yeah.
if you're hiding, you're strategizing in relationship. When we grow up, we shave parts of ourselves off to fit in, right?
Mm.
You know, we try behavior A with our parents, it doesn't work. We try behavior B, and we get our needs met. And whatever that is for you, whatever your family requires from you for you to fit in,
Yeah.
we then end up going, oh, well, that part of me is unacceptable. I'm just going to get rid of that. And I'm only going to show up as shiny and helpful and whatever it is that gets your needs met. And then as adults, we don't check in and go, well, hang on a minute. That is actually, I've just got rid of all of my, passion and all of my, I've thrown the baby out with the bathwater. So then we just strategize in relationship. Like if I'm going to show up like this, you're going to love me. And if I can't show up like that, you're not going to love me.
It's interesting that you talk about childhood and that we sort of learn a series of behaviors that allow us to survive in childhood, and then we don't realize as an adult we're still using those behaviors. I often say when I'm coaching people that we spend our lives trying to find our way back to our authentic self, which is the self that we sort of came out of the womb as, and when you're young, before you have all of these experiences and end up putting all of this cladding on you to be the person that you feel that you need to be for the adults, you're actually free. And, if you're lucky enough, you have a sense of self and you're authentic, and then you start adapting to be something that everybody else wants. And then often you spend your life trying to figure out who you really are so that you can get back to some sense of peace, which has certainly been my journey. Now, you did a TED Talk that has had thousands and thousands of people watch it. It was very popular. And you talked about comedy as part of that. You talked about transforming your shame into comedy. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So I grew up watching French and Saunders and just decided at about the age of 10, that's the job for me. That's the job I want. That looks perfect. And growing up, I couldn't really get that dream off the ground because of everything that got in the way. I was not well, right? I was running away from myself. I had internalized homophobia. I was smoking weed. I was doing drugs. I was partying. I was just pretending. And I went through this whole episode of psychiatric ward when I was 19 and came out the other side of that and decided, right, I really need to do whatever it is I'm supposed to be doing, which felt like some sort of performance. And so I started doing that at around 22, probably is when I first did stand up. And I did a little course and then hosted a show and stuff. But I was so hyper vigilant of the one person in the room that didn't like me. I was running on fear. And it was a lot of fear of having to be perfect. Come back when you're perfect, right? Which is not something you can be straight away. You have to go through the learning process. But it was just so painful and traumatic not to be perfect because of stuff that had happened, specific things that had happened and had stuck with me. So I would go to the stage, I would do something, and then that would leave me running from the stage for years at a time.
Oh, wow.
Then when I finally got into recovery, I was 29, and 2 years into my recovery, two of the older people in my recovery circle, they said, you've got to go and do some education. Of course, I was terrified. I didn't have the points for university, nothing, I was just... But there was a course that popped up, and it was comedy writing and performance degree at Salford University in Manchester, Salford, but Manchester. And it was like the first time they'd ever run it. It was just so magic. It came out of nowhere. It was like, we're doing this course, and I joined the course, got on it. And 3 years later, at the end of the course, I did a research performance project. And I kind of didn't know what I was doing. And my poor tutor had to kind of spoon feed me, you know, what's your question? Because, you know, the whole thing was just bizarre to me, all of it, everything, education, everything. It's just bizarre. Like, why are you even putting anything up, like your creativity on a marking system? That would like really bother me.
Yeah.
Anyway, I digress, but I did this research project. Can I use comedy as a therapeutic tool to smash the shame and stigma that I carry? And so then began my research into, well, who's using comedy as a therapeutic tool? And, you know, that's why I'm in Canada, actually, because I found somebody here that does it. And I thought, well, I'll go and do some work experience with that person. Eventually, that happened after. But that performance changed everything for me. And it was filmed, and then a psychiatrist from the psychiatric ward I was in 10 years before saw it and invited me to come and do a performance for a mental health roadshow. And then somebody else saw it there and said, would you come and do it at our treatment centre over here? And somebody else saw it there and said, can you come and do it for our charity over here? And it was like, oh my God, this is really helping people. At the same time, I was putting on a show or putting on a comedy night at a dry bar with all my recovery friends. And I was just living it out, this beautiful experience of being around all these beautiful recovery people with all the joy of being free from active addiction. And then I got a job with a charity, a front-running charity that really builds communities of recovery outside of services. And that was up in Preston. It's called Red Rose Recovery. And that was a really networking job. And they said, well, we can help you with your comedy. You could do your comedy therapy here. So they got funding from the Drug and Alcohol Services. I began doing this work over there, and I called it Addictive Comedy. And we had that night. And then I thought, well, the people who are coming out of this course can come and perform at our recovery night in the Northern Quarter in Manchester. And we were always sold out. It was so popular, and the vibration in the room was always just brilliant. And it didn't matter if you were good or not, which is something that you do not get in comedy clubs.
Right.
We were just glad you were alive. that was like, we're just glad you're freaking alive, mate. And we're just like going to cheer you and love you up. And just the way that everybody, you know, if somebody came into the room, you know, the audience would all mix. They'd all get together. You know, there was just this like hugely healing and joyous vibration in the room. And that's what kind of, I started to join the dots, and it was like, oh, hang on a minute. If we mix the community and we mix the therapy and the spirituality and the camaraderie with the comedy, with the creativity, with the storytelling, with the ownership, we've got something different here. Now we've got something which can come out of the, you know, the 12-step recovery meetings and all the stigma that comes along with that. We can come out of, you know, and we can just come out and tell our stories. And it just snowballed. And I moved to Canada, and I needed to get away from that because I was doing the same story again and again. And I was like, I'm bored of this now. I need to go and move and do a creative project. And I just sort of thought, well, I'll just go and do 6 months in Canada. And when I got here, I thought, oh, I think I'm going to live here. And I've been here 10 years now. But to stay, I trained as a therapist, which actually changed my life, because I began then to look at the fact that I had shaved off half of who I was, that I was only showing up in the parts where, you know, because growing up with a mother who was always having a meltdown, I had learnt to push feelings down and internalize some sort of story where my feelings hurt other people.
Yeah.
It was unsafe to have feelings as a child because it seemed to make my mum more, you know, she couldn't cope with then having children with needs as well as being a social worker, as well as all the stress and the overwhelm that you would get. So I learnt to cry, and I learnt to embrace my shadow, and I got to know this other part of myself which I had rejected. And then when I came onto stage, I was somebody else. I wasn't I was all of me. And then I realized, well, we don't have to be perfect on stage. In fact, the more permission I give myself to just be here and be authentic, the better.
Yeah, amazing. So I've got so many questions in my head, and if I asked you all of them, we'd be here for hours. So let's focus on the one that's really buzzing around in my mind, because there's something about your energy that makes me think that you go with your heart, or you go with your gut, or you go with your intuition. You're moved to do something. I'm moving to Canada. I'm doing this. I'm going to I mean, for a lot of people, the decisions you've made in your life would seem like risks, right? But it feels like you are moved to do something. Do you think that is that a fair observation?
Yes, and good eye. Because I have a team of people or team of workers, and I came here on a mission. And I see team in, in spirit or other dimensions. So I came here on a mission. Like, I've always just known I'm going over here now. I'm going over here. And there came a point in my life where I said, I'm not going to sit on this volcano anymore. I remember being about 22 or 23 and just having this, because I would sit on that dream, like the dreams that I had and the visions that I had of me being in certain places and being around certain things and doing certain things. They did seem crazy, and people would look at me like, yeah, you're crazy.
Yeah.
Because it was so out there and so big.
Yeah.
My friends used to call me cosmic from like the age of like 18. Like, oh, Liz, you're so cosmic. And I'd be like, oh my God, guys, we can have all this love without drugs. I was like, that was, my sister had to say, Liz, we're all trying to have a good time here. Can you just shut up? But I was like, no, we can have this without drugs. And that was like, I'm jumping about the place, but a certain point in time, I have finished with a place, or a place has finished with me, and I'm ready for the next step. And first of all, it will tell me in many ways, okay, you're going to go over here. First, I'll start seeing where I'm going. I'll get a green lit, like I feel like my body will get a green lit. It'll be, yes, I get excited about that. It feels good. I might sit on it a bit. If I sit on it too long, the universe will kick me. It will kick me. I will become uncomfortable and I will have no choice. So now I know I will listen and I will be directed. And every time I am directed, it is better than I ever could have expected, because we are all connected to source. We are able to intuitively make decisions if we have a connection with our higher self, higher whatever. We can literally be guided through a war zone safely. Do you remember Harriet Tubman? She was an escaped slave, and there's a whole film about her, and she would rescue slaves, and she would guide them up through to Canada. But she would do it all intuitively. So she would know when to stop, when to keep moving. And she rescued so many people like that because she was in tune with a higher. And we all have that, but it takes discipline, right? And the logic mind will say, don't do that. You're going to get a pay rise, so you can't leave the job,
Yeah, absolutely.
Even though the job is killing you, right? The whole system is killing us, right? The whole system is killing the planet. And we need to be able to step out of that and follow our own inner guidance system. We need to trust ourselves. So what you're basically saying is, I trust myself.
Well, I mean, I love this. I wasn't expecting us to talk about it, but here we are. So that was obviously meant to happen. So, I mean, you and I are very, very similar in that respect, but I never talk about this. I mean, there'd be very, very few people who I would tell that I am guided to. But this is just something that happens. I'm guided. I get these I call them messages, and then I have to act. So pretty much my whole life at the moment is about, I'm getting all sorts of direction that comes from somewhere, and I am following it, because for the first time in my life I have let go of trying to control my life, and I realized that that was making me desperately unhappy. Because actually, as you say, if you listen and just stay attentive to what is going on around you, you get all of the information that you need in order to be able to make all of the decisions that you need to make to live your best possible life. I mean, I'm sure there'll be people listening to this that think that that is crazy, but I really firmly believe that it's true. How do people who haven't already figured this out start to see that that is possible, that trusting their gut is possible, that taking maybe more risks is possible, that following their soul's purpose is possible, that doing something that doesn't look like the conventional path is okay?
Well, I think people don't have a choice anymore, because the systems are absolutely crumbling around us. And if you can recognize that all the upsets, all the discord, all the seeming endings, or, hard times, or whatever it is that you might look through the lens of, just recognize that those things are directing you into something bigger, better, stronger, more vital. And it's okay to get outside of the box. And I think most people are just not going to have a choice. I think there's, whether people are going to want to really hear this or not, those who can hear it, can hear it. Those who can't. And it doesn't matter, right? But it doesn't mean we shouldn't speak it.
Yeah.
Speak it, okay? Don't underestimate people, because lots of people do understand it and lots of people don't, but they'll just switch off and it doesn't matter anyway. So the world is splitting into two, okay? And one side of the are going to slip down into the abyss, and they are the ones that are being controlled and happy to be controlled and giving all their power away to, the powers that be. And then there's another side where people are going, well, hang on a minute, I'm as switched on, wide awake as the trees and the flowers and the birds and the squirrels, and they're all doing their own thing. They're all living the present moment.
Yeah.
And we're being asked to step into that. So when I'm present and I'm living in the present moment, I can meet every single thing. And reality then doesn't just become a construct in my mind. It isn't just the things I see on the news that tell me what the world is, that the world is at war and burning. And well, no, it's not. When I step outside, my world is not, well, it is burning around here. We've got smoke coming in from a forest nearby, forest fires and stuff. But ultimately, we're looking at a choice. And the choice is, are you going to wake up and, take responsibility for your own energetic contribution to the whole, whether that be, yeah, I mean, that we're slightly sort of veering into it, but it's about taking responsibility for your energetic contribution to the whole. And people think it's going to be so much better if okay, there's a war over there and I don't agree with the war, so I'm going to be really self-righteous and bang on about how much this war shouldn't be happening. Of course the war shouldn't be happening. But you being at war with the war is the war. So you are the war. You are carrying the war in your energy. And I think it's a process that we need to go through. Like, we all have to go through this process of like, I can't live in this world. And so that's kind of like a process. You can't just get rid of it. But once you get through it, you need to understand that your energy is important, and what you're adding your energy to is important.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I often talk to the kids about keep the vibration high. So if they go into sort of a sense of complaining about things or complaining about people or, you know, making observations that just don't feel particularly productive, I now say, come on, guys, let's keep the vibration high, because I firmly believe that we all have a role to play in keeping the vibration of the planet high. You know, you talk about uplifting society, and we can all make a positive difference, can't we? But I think the way that our siloed, separate, distracted world has evolved means that we're often rooted in this: I need to protect myself, I need to survive, what about me, what does this mean for me, how do I make sure that I don't look bad in this situation, how do I make sure that I look better in this situation? And when you can throw off the shackles of all of that thinking and think, well, what can I do to uplift humanity? What can I do to help people every day? What's my positive affirmation for the day? What am I happy about? What am I grateful for? You lift all of your energy, don't you? And if you can stay in the moment whilst doing that, you know, what you said about presence is so important. When we drift into what could happen or what did happen, which is just all rooted in fear often, we just stay absolutely present in the moment and think about what we're here to achieve and what difference we can make and how we can make things better, both for ourselves and others, because it isn't about being totally selfless, because we need to feel good to do good work. Going back to your point about you needed to get yourself well in order to do your work. Everything is uplifted, and then all of those fears and the fact that we're losing hope as a humanity because we see all the atrocities around us and it seems like everything is tragic, doesn't it? You become part of the solution.
It's action. It's action. Like every morning it's getting up and it's aligning your mind and your heart and your spirit with your higher self. Like your higher self is the part of you that's eternal and connected and untouched by anything that happens on earth. And I think if we remember that none of us are getting out of this alive, right? You don't get out of this world alive. And all we do is live in fear collectively, where it's a collective vibration of fear. And if you recognize that the fear itself is the enemy, not the cause of the fear, that the fear itself is blocking you off from your essential self, from your higher self, because fear is a construct in your own mind, you know? So it's the small self that becomes afraid. If you were living with your higher self and in connection with your higher self and guided by your higher self, which is one with all things, there is absolutely no need to be afraid, because you remember that this is the dream. We are here playing around in this illusion of separateness. You've got your body, I've got mine, but essentially the same energy is animating all forms. So if you remember that, you remember you're actually just playing out your own drama. And as soon as you realize that you're playing out your own drama, then you get to choose again.
Absolutely.
Drops
It's
the mic
interesting.
and leaves.
Yeah, no, I know. Do you need to walk away now? Is that's
No, I don't. Yeah.
I read a book. Have you ever read the series of books called Conversations with God?
Absolutely, I have.
Yeah, I mean, they're a wonderful. Well, I mean, regardless of whether you believe in God or not, I think they're just a brilliant series of books to get you thinking differently. One of the things I read was about the fact that we are in heaven now. This is heaven, but we are screwing it up, and we are screwing it up because of fear and greed. But you know, this is as good as it's going to get. I mean, it is. I don't believe that, but you know, this is heaven. There is no hell. We're not all going to hell. We're not going to burn in hell. We are creating hell on earth. And I guess it sort of speaks to everything you just said, which is we have choice. We have a choice to walk out into the world every day being scared of it, or we have a choice to go out into the world and uplift it.
You know, heaven and hell, you can switch between them all the time. That's called timeline jumping. Or you can switch between different, you know, futures, basically, where you're taking yourself. And heaven and hell is a decision inside oneself. You can sit in heaven, right? You can sit on a beautiful beach in a beautiful part of the world. But if you dwell on negativity, you will be in hell. But you can also be in prison and dwell on heavenly things, dwell on right-minded things, and be in heaven. And I'm a massive fan of the Tao Te Ching, or Tao Te Ching is how they say it, I think. I don't know what my point from that is, but anyway, I suppose that's perimenopause for you, isn't it? It might come back.
Yeah, I now believe that if I forget something, whether it's to do with perimenopause or not, I wasn't meant to say it. Or something else will come in a minute that's even more profound.
100%. Well, that brings us to acceptance, which I think is the answer to all our problems. Because what you were talking about earlier, you were talking about sort of, I want things this way, I want things that way. The ego mind, I'm better than, I'm worse than, this. And you talked about not controlling anymore. Like you're accepting you don't actually have control. So I think when people start sounding out, like, I'm not saying don't speak up about important things and don't take right action and don't, I'm not saying any of that. I'm not saying just ignore the plight of other humans or the planet. It's really, don't get so upset and angry and self-righteous and blamey.
Yeah.
When your energy, when maybe you're not speaking kindly to people in your day-to-day life, or maybe you're not kind of, showing up in relationships in peace and love. Like, who are you to sort of point the finger and say other people shouldn't be fighting, but here I am, fighting myself, fighting the world, fighting everything. It's like, this is interesting because I did make a reel that people kind of thought, well, like, I'm going to tell you what, you're wrong. You should be doing this, this, and this. And it's like, and I said something about, love vibration, love energy. If we get into that space, we're going to create big shifts on this planet collectively, if we can do that. And people think, no, you need to fight against these powers. You need to fight. But they don't understand that when you are in the vibration of love, your actions are going to be inspired by love. And the things that you do are in love. It's not just an empty, it's not just saying, oh yeah, be in love, man, peace, and take acid and sit on a bus. Do you know what I mean? It's like, no. When I'm committed to a higher vibration, then the work that I do and the way that I show up in the world and whatever connections I have with other people are going to be cooperative, and they are going to be peaceful, and they are going to inspire others to do the same. And what do we need? It's cooperation. We need to work together. We need all of these things. And it doesn't come from control. It doesn't come from, berating people into, your way of thinking.
Yeah, I mean, love is ultimately the highest power. I couldn't agree any more with you. I was at the theatre with somebody recently, and we were at this incredibly emotive show, which I just wanted to cry the whole way through. But I noticed how separate everybody was. And bearing in mind, we are British, so we were being our most British selves. But everybody was sitting very separate to each other. Nobody was touching, and I felt like I was the only one who was sort of sobbing my heart out in this theatre. And I thought, why is nobody touching each other? Why is nobody holding each other? Why is nobody loving each other up? Why do we not see that? Why do we not? I sort of slipped into some sort of weird 60s type of vibe where I was like, and we had, for part of the show, we had to go outside into like a Minack theatre type of outside amphitheatre. So the sun was shining. It was a beautiful day. The show we were seeing was incredible. The actors were incredible. I was so moved. And for some reason, I was stood around thinking, why aren't people holding each other and loving each other? I don't know why that was the thought. You will no doubt have similar experiences to me where you'll have some sort of download of something you haven't considered before, and then all of a sudden you think, wow, yeah, why are people not doing that? And I just thought, why have we separated ourselves so much in society? Because actually, if we just loved, if that was the thing we brought every day, everything would be okay. Everything would be okay. I mean, that's what I believe anyway.
Yeah, I love that. I love that you noticed that. That's such a powerful realization, because what we're talking about here is fear, separation, and conditioning and control. So it's the collective mindset. It's like you were talking about, why do we hide, right? So you felt like the only person in that space who was bawling their eyes out, and other people were probably having to hide it for the very same reasons that I told you about, that it wasn't safe to have feelings. Like, if you speak to my dad will say, we didn't have feelings in the 50s, right? It's like we have been programmed by a generation, maybe lifetimes of people who have been told, you're not allowed to have emotions, you're not allowed to show up, it's not safe. And we're still living with, maybe it wasn't safe 500,000 years ago, right? Maybe it wasn't, because of all the people, the kings and whatever, that controlled the land, and you're just a serf on the land. And do you know what I mean? We come from, it's a brutal history we come from. So we are living in trauma. We are traumatized collectively. And that's the nature of reality. Like, nobody escapes trauma. Nobody escapes the effects of growing up with traumatized people. But when we recognize and we show up in love, we fall in love with ourselves. We bring ourselves back to ourselves and go, hang on a minute, I am a miracle and I'm going to live as such. And then your essential consciousness, your light, will shine through, and it will animate you, and it will animate the people around you, and they will just wake up. They'll go, oh my goodness, of course we can all hug. Do you know what I mean? Like, do you ever get that like thing where you want to stand up in a really quiet room and shout something, like, to sort of just break the monotony of just conformity, where you go, hello everyone, I'd like to make an announcement. My
children would tell you that I do that, and that they're mortified by it and want to leave me, basically, because I will. And then, we'll be walking through London, and I'll just want to shout an expletive or something, just to sort of shake things up a little bit, because everything's just so conformist. But actually, as a consequence of that, I often feel like I don't conform. I mean, now I'm comfortable with that. I now have reached, the point in which I just think, I don't care. I'm trying to do my best in life. I try and keep the vibration high. I try and be a good person. I try to bring kindness. I try to bring love. And I know that people sometimes look at me and think, you're odd. You're just a weirdo. And I'm like, yeah, that's true. I am. Thank you very much.
Thanks for noticing.
But you have to get comfortable with that, don't you? My 15-year-old daughter, can't get comfortable with that right now. Not with me, but, she wouldn't be able to have that thought for herself, because, of course, we live in this society that's constantly looking. We're all looking at each other to go, what do they say? What do they do? What do they wear? How much do they earn? What do they drive? Are they cool? Are they ick? I mean, all of the things. And it's just, it's such
I know, kids are so funny. Brah.
Yeah, well, exactly. And I just think that's such a difficult, I think that the younger generation have got their work cut out for them, because it's so hard. Everybody's looking at each other, assessing their levels of cool or slay or whatever it is. my kids will kill me for saying that on the podcast. It's hard, isn't it? What do you think you've learned from your journey as somebody who is still, young and cool, I would argue, that you could share with the new generation that are coming through that will help them on their path?
Well, I think I would speak to our generation and, and the adults in the room, and just keep doing the things that your children get, like embarrassed about, because the young teenagers, they are so uncool, and they think they're the coolest thing since sliced bread. They think they're so cool, but they couldn't be anything less cool than a young teenager. Like,
Oh no!
so they go around, but they go around judging, don't they? They're the most judgmental, because they are learning for the first time. And I remember this being like going from this child into a teenager, and the morph was basically, the thing that happens is when you're a child, you can't see yourself. You don't look at yourself. You don't think about yourself. And then suddenly, when you're a teenager, you get another voice that comes in and says, this is what people think of you. This is what people think of you. This is what people think. So they start going, well, this is what I think of you. This is what I think of you. This is what I think of you. And ultimately, it's the beginning of that judgy ego voice. So when you just own it, you just own who you are, and you're a whole human, and you can let them have their experience of being embarrassed. That's their choice.
Yeah.
But when they get a bit older, they're going to go, actually, that is what's cool.
Yeah.
Because what is cool is being unique, yourself, authentic, different, because we are all original. We all express the life force in a different way, but they are programmed, and it's in their DNA. Like, think about it. This is, they're not just carrying it from this lifetime. They're carrying it from your generation, the ones above, the ones above, the ones above, and the collective. So it's all hammering down on them. So all you have to do, or any of us have to do, is hold that vibration of, I own who I am, and I love who I am, and I appreciate your feedback, but I don't agree. The end, right? Then when they're old enough, they go, oh no, I actually think that's cool. So I can embody that instead. So it's not really about trying to change them. It's just keep doing me.
Yeah, be your absolute most authentic self. And
because that's cool. And they don't know that. They don't know that because they're still trying, right?
Yeah, well, exactly. So there's two questions I've got left. One is, if people want to work with you to do what you do now, what is it you are doing now, and how can they do that?
Well, I coach people one-on-one, but I only work with 3 people at a time. So it is an investment. I'll tell you that for free. But you get access to me, and I work very closely with you, and we have a really good time. When it comes to hilarity, I am going to run another course here, but I am going on tour in the USA next year. So I will be working through the States, and that's going to be a whole other chapter. So that's where I'm being led at the moment.
Great.
And then, of course, once I get my visa to do comedy and comedy therapy in the USA, well, all bets are off. I will just absolutely take off like a rocket.
Yeah, great.
So, and that's it, really.
Fantastic. So you're going to take off like a rocket, which is great.
Yes.
And just quickly explain to us what the hilarity is. I think it's an important thing that we cover before we go.
Hilarity is the intersection of therapy, spirituality, and comedy. And I have a course which is 10 weeks long, but we are in process to turning that into a series. So you'll be able to watch it, basically, and follow the journeys of these characters as they go through their process to get to the stage, to own their stuff. So that's where that's at the moment. So it's not as easy for me now to do courses locally and things like that because of the other creative projects that I have to get going. But it's all coming.
Okay, so we need to watch. We need to watch, wait, and listen.
Yes, and my website will be up and running fairly soon. So lizzieallan.com.
And in the meantime, how can people get hold of you?
So you can follow me on Instagram at Lizzie Allan Vision. And you can sign up to an email list and things like that. But everything's coming. I'm a bit of a one-man band, but the team is building and building and building.
Great. Well, and obviously, if there's anybody out there who wants to help you, who in actual 3D form as a real human being, maybe they can reach out. Before we go, we also must talk about the Women's Circle, because, of course, that's the other way that people can get some of this wonderful Lizzie Allan love. I've been to your Women's Circle, which was just chef's kiss. Having had a really tricky day, I came and it just meant that I had a really good sleep, actually. Do you want to just quickly explain a little bit about that and how people can find out more?
Yeah, you can go to the Women's Circle Movement.com and learn about everything to do with that. And it's a leaderless movement of women's circles that we hope will spread across the world. And it's a place where you can come for free or by donation and be heard, seen, share and witnessed, and we just lift each other up. And it's not coaching, it's not therapy, it's connection. And at the moment we have one circle that meets every Monday at 12 PST, which is Vancouver time, but you can work out the time difference. It's 8 o'clock in the UK.
Yeah.
And lots of different women from all over the world come and we share the facilitating, we make it continue. There's no leaders. Anyone can start a circle in person. We have all the resources you need to start your own circle online, and we are going to act as the hub. So the Women's Circle Movement is the hub, so people can come and go, oh, look, there's a women's circle in my area, or there's one in my time zone. That's the thing. That's the vision. But we start small and we go out from there, I suppose.
Well, that's the secret to success. You've got to start somewhere. And it was incredible when I came, and I will definitely come to more. So I would highly recommend it. I could go on talking to you for a very long time, Lizzie, not least because I learn something every time I listen to you, whether that's on an Instagram reel or in person. So thank you so much. I would really encourage the audience to track down Lizzie's content, because it's just incredible. It's very, very thought-provoking. And in a world where things are quite difficult at the moment and it's hard to keep your vibration up, Lizzie does help you to do that. So thank you so much for being a guest on the Peace is a Choice podcast today. I've hugely enjoyed it, and I'm sure there's lots of people that would get massive amounts of benefit from what you've shared with us today.
Thank you for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you for listening to Peace is a Choice. For any information on what we've covered in today's episode, and to connect with my guests, head to the show notes. It would be great if you could rate and review the podcast and subscribe now so you don't miss out on any future episodes.